So in this video, I'm going to show you how to get started with Firebase Test Lab. For those of you who have no idea what Firebase Test Lab is, it is a Firebase tool that allows you to run your UI tests on Firebase on the Google Cloud servers. So they have a number of virtual devices and real devices and 11 different API versions that you can deploy your test to and run on these different devices. And then they have you can access your project in the Firebase console. You can look at your results and see what passed, what didn't, and a lot more information in there too. So this is obviously great for people who don't have a whole bunch of devices available to them, which is most people. I don't know about you, but I don't have like 100 devices just sitting around that I'm ready to hook up and run tests on. So the Firebase Test Lab gives you access to all of these different devices. So it's a really great tool, I think. So of course, this is not free. It's not a free service. There is like a free tier, I guess you would say, but you don't really get a lot out of it. We're going to be using the free one in this video. But if you want to test any significant number of devices, it is definitely paid. So we'll talk a little bit about the pricing maybe later on in the video. So how do you get started doing this? Well, it's Firebase Test Lab is actually integrated with Android Studio, so it makes it really easy to do. You can follow this document. I'll put a link in the description of this video, so you can follow this document. But it's on the Android developer website, and pretty much just takes you through what you need to do. It's actually very simple. So let's go through this document, and we'll run some tests. We'll use Firebase Test Lab. We'll look at the results, and then we'll talk about the pricing. So the first step here is you need to create a Google account. So obviously, if you don't have a Google account, you need to do that. And I'm not signed into mine, but I guess I could sign in. All right, so I'm signed into my Google account. That is step one. Check. Now we want to go to the Firebase console and create a new project. So you can click this link, and it's going to take you to this page right here. So I'm going to create a brand new project here. I'll go through this whole process just for those of you who aren't familiar with Firebase. Enter name UI testing or UI Espresso testing or something. Whatever, naming is not important because I'm going to delete this after anyway. So go to continue. Google Analytics is free, by the way, for those of you who don't know. It allows you, it installs into your application, and then you can go to your Firebase console, go to the project, and you can get a lot of really great analytical information about your applications. But this is not a video about that, so I'm going to click that off. But it is free, so for those of you who are wondering about that, pretty much in any of your projects, just throw in Google Analytics because it's free, and it actually will tie into your website analytics if you want to too, which I have never done, but I know it can do that. And then you can look at the analytics for your app, look at it for your website, build custom reports, all that kind of stuff. All right, so that is set up. Now let's go into the project, and we're going to need to do some things in Android Studio to get started here. So you want to click on this little Android icon right here. So get started by adding Firebase to your app. So click on this little Android icon. I want to enter my package name. So I'm going to go to Android Studio. Where's my Android Studio? There it is. So I'm going to go, oh, I had a whole bunch of stuff open. I want to get my package. So this is the package right here. And I'm going to go back to the browser. Paste that in. Now I can optionally add a nickname for my app. I'm not going to. You can add the SHA-1 certificate for increased security. Again, I'm not going to because I'm going to be deleting this project. So that's it. I'm just going to add the package and register the app. Now what it's going to do is it's going to produce a configuration file which I need to download and put into my project. So here's my Windows Explorer open, and here you can see there's that Google Services file. Again, this cannot have a little 1 in a bracket. If it does, then it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is look for the other Google Services file, which is this right here, and I'm going to delete that because that's the one that's causing it to increment that name. And now I'm going to rename this to Google Services.json. So now just keep in mind that it has to be named that way, otherwise it won't work. So there's that Google Services JSON file. Now what I want to do is I want to copy that. So I'm pressing Control X on that. So I'm going to cut it. Now I'm going back to Android Studio, and I'm going inside of the app folder. So selecting project, going to the app folder, and I'm pressing Control V, and I'm pasting it in. So pressing OK. So now that Google Services.json file was pasted into my project. No, I'm not going to add it to Git, so there it is right there. And this is the configuration file that Firebase needs to communicate with your project. So going back to Firebase, I'm going to click Next, and we need to add some dependencies. So first of all is this one for the build.gradle project file. So copying that, going into my build.gradle project file, and I can just paste that in there, click Sync. Going back to the documentation here, now I need to copy this one. So com, Google, GMS, Google Services, copying that, going into my build.gradle app file now. As soon as this Gradle sync is finished, I'll paste it in. All right, Gradle is done doing its thing. Now I'm going to paste that in down at the bottom. So com, Google, GMS, Google Services. It's going to ask me to sync again. So there's sync. Now let's go back to the documentation one more time. Whoops, that was not the documentation. There's the documentation. And that should be good. So as soon as Gradle's finished syncing, which it is, now I can click next, and it should try to communicate with my project, or at least, oh, it must have already done it. Okay, so now go to the console. So now my app is configured to work with this Firebase project. So now let's go back to the documentation and see what's next here. So next is configure a test matrix and run a test. So it gives pretty detailed instructions here, so you could follow this if you want to, but I'll just kind of show you on video. So I'm going to close this, go up to edit configurations up here, and now we're going to create a new instrumentation test configuration. So clicking on here, clicking the plus icon, I want to choose Android instrumented test. I'll just do like Firebase Test Lab demo. I want to select the app here, go to class. We're going to test a specific class in the project. So I'll test main activity test. So selecting that. Now I want to choose Firebase Test Lab device matrix from this drop down right here. And we can choose, first of all, our project. So we just created UI Espresso testing. That was our Firebase project that we just created. Now we want to choose a matrix configuration. So this is kind of like, this is the devices and the versions and things like that. This is what we're going to be testing. They have a couple of samples here. So sample Spark configuration or sample configuration. This was one that I created earlier. It actually failed, so don't worry about that one. But there is certain things that you can't test. So like certain API levels don't work with certain devices, so you do need to be careful. So we're going to create a custom matrix here. So I'm going to go up to here, click on the plus icon, and I'll just say like, first test lab matrix. The first two options you have here are using physical devices or virtual devices. The virtual devices are obviously just like emulators. They're on Google Cloud servers. The physical devices are ones that are actually managed by Google, so they're real devices. So the physical ones cost more to test than the virtual ones. They actually cost 5 times more. So the virtual ones, well, you can, if you look at the pricing, it's $1 per device per hour. The physical devices are $5 per device per hour. So 5 times more expensive, but obviously the physical devices are the ones that you're probably going to want to test. They're more realistic. So we're going to choose two physical devices. Just, I don't know, I'll choose like I'll choose a Galaxy S9. Looks like that's a Korea version. Okay, maybe not that one. We'll choose the US Galaxy S9, and we'll choose the Google Pixel. Just not for any particular reason. And I'm going to choose API level 26 and maybe API level 23. The local will be English, and then orientation will be both portrait and landscape. So if you want to check out the pricing, you can click this link right here, Firebase Test Lab pricing. But it doesn't really give you a whole lot of information. All it does is if you scroll down, it says this is the Spark plan. So you get 10 tests per day that are free on virtual devices or 5 tests per day on physical devices. This is the Blaze. Is it the Blaze? I don't remember the names, but this is the free one. This is the 20. Oh, down here. Okay, so Spark, Flame, Blaze. Blaze is the pay as you go. So virtual devices, $1 per device per hour or $5 per device per hour. So that's pretty good because you should theoretically be able to test like your entire application within 1 hour. So each device you use for that hour will cost you $5. So depending on where you live in the world, I guess that's probably going to be too expensive or not very expensive. Like in Canada or the US, I think that's pretty reasonable. But if you're in India or something like that, that's probably pretty expensive. So it's probably out of your budget range. But yeah, do with that information whatever you want. So there's our configuration. We have it selected. I'll click apply, click OK. And now let's run our test. So if I'll click the play button up here, and that's going to deploy our APK to those devices that are managed by Google, and it's going to run our test down here and give us some log output. So right away, you can see that some of these are incompatible. So this Google Pixel is incompatible with that version. That one's also incompatible. This one's incompatible, and this one's incompatible. So it looks like the only 4 tests that we're going to be able to run are these 2 right here, and then these 2 right here on the S9. So I'll probably pause the video here because this is going to take a few minutes to run, and when it's done, we'll take a look at the output. All right, so it looks like our tests are done. The total time it took was 14 seconds. So we only tested, a very small test, and we only tested on, actually it was only one device because the compatibility with the Pixel and Marshmallow was an issue, but it only took 14 seconds. So, theoretically, you should be able to test if you had a big project, like a big app, and you wanted to test your entire thing using Firebase Test Lab. Theoretically, you should be able to do the whole thing in under probably 10 minutes or something like that. So the billing there would be 1/6 of $5 per device. That would be pretty reasonable, I think. And then of course you could test on lots of different devices. And yeah, so I mean, I think it's pretty useful, and I think the pricing is pretty reasonable if you're in US or Canada anyway. So here's all the tests that pass down here, and if we want some more information, you can actually go to your Google Cloud Console and go to the project. So this is the UI Espresso testing project. We can go to the test lab here, and we can look at those tests. So these were other tests that I ran. The most recent one is the one that we just did right here. So if I click on this, it can give me more information on what happened, if they passed, whatever. I think you can click on this and look at it in more detail too. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and click around and play around with it, but obviously if you're curious, just go into the project here and look at the different things that you can do. So that's going to be it for Firebase Test Lab. I just wanted to give you kind of a very brief introduction on how to do it, how to use it in Android Studio, a little bit about the pricing, just like an introduction basically. So in the next video, we are going to start working on fragments. So just like with activities, when we first started testing activities, we tested them in isolation. So we launched the activity, we made sure the things that were supposed to be in view were in view. That's what we're going to do with fragments now. We're going to launch the fragments using the new Android X test stuff, and we're going to make sure that everything that is supposed to be there is there. And then after that, we'll work on testing fragment navigation. So I'll see you in the next video.